tax issue. It was reported that, well, we'll talk about that in a second. We've got Mr. Tom Hastain, and you were at the workshop on Wednesday.
I was.
That the school board had. And
yes.
this is just like breaking news this week. I heard one report that the governor has forced this issue or what have you, but basically the governor cut funds and then said schools figured out.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And the cut
Brown
has taken place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jerry Brown has decided to cut all school transportation funding in the state of California.
So that means they're not paying for it. Go find your own money.
Pretty much. The problem that creates in Big Bear is that Big Bear has been 100% funded in the past since 1971. And as the other school districts got bigger, their funding didn't increase because the funding was set in like 1971 or real early 70s.
Wow.
And as like Orange County school districts increased and LA Unified increased, they had this small budget. And of course, they got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and they never got any more money. So those school districts have been used to paying for transportation costs. Most of it, actually, because they've tripled, quadrupled in size. Well, Big Bear hasn't done that. And so when they cut transportation, they cut 100% of its funding.
Wow.
And so basically, you're going to have a school district with no transportation, and that creates a huge problem in Big Bear because we're unique in that we don't have a lot of sidewalks. Our students will be walking on state highways with no sidewalks. It's very dangerous, and then you've got the ice and snow issues on top of that. Then you have parents who economically either both of them are working, or if you're a single parent, one of them works, and based on their schedule, they may not be able to provide transportation.
I know when my kids were at school, I'm just thinking about that this week. Oh, I don't know how to
How
cope
would you
with
get
that.
them to school?
How would I cope with that?
Yeah, and you don't want your second grader walking 4 miles to school.
No.
And a lot of the trails through the woods and stuff, and we, I mean, let's face it, we have some predators here in the valley, and they're on Megan's list and stuff. It's dangerous for kids to be walking around.
Is Governor Brown listed on that list of child predators? Because this certainly
Well,
seems to be
And yeah, I don't. He did a shotgun approach,
Wow.
trying to pay for other entitlements to the state, but it really affects Big Bear in a very difficult way. And we've heard comments. Well, why don't you charge for transportation like a lot of the other districts are? They charge. Some parents are paying as much as $300 a month for transportation.
Wow.
In like down in Temecula and places like that, Orange County and so forth. But up here we have. The ridership up here is really high. It's well over 50%, and most of those people
what about 1,500 students a day?
Yeah, 1,500 students a day approximately is what they transport. But most of those students are already on free and reduced programs, so they already can't afford to pay. Because they're already getting free lunches at school or reduced costs and things like that. So there's a need. Exactly.
Yeah.
So in Big Bear, the haves and have-nots are pretty defined. Our middle class has just about disappeared here in Big Bear, and so most parents can't afford to pay that kind of money to pay for school bus transportation. And then the people that don't ride the bus, well, their parents take them, or they have a car. One of the kids drives the kids around or something like that, and they have 2 or 3 cars. Well, a lot of people in Big Bear have 1 car per family or no cars. They ride MARTA. And then some of the suggestions, well, why don't they just ride MARTA? Well, MARTA can't transport 1,500 kids to school every day with all the different bell times and all that. That's just not going to work. And some suggestions say, well, why don't we just have community groups organized for parents driving around and dropping kids off in each neighborhood, take turns. The problem with that is the liability issues, of course, and then the nightmare of scheduling. And then you got 1,500 more cars on the street at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's just a complex problem created for us in Big Bear. And probably the biggest issue, probably the second biggest issue, is that how do we get our kids to school and keep our average daily attendance up?
Because it's the ADA, the average daily attendance, that gets the school paid to be there in the first place.
That's correct.
So if the kids aren't there, that's money coming out of more money. Coming out of the school.
Exactly. There's I don't know what the formula is per kid that it's like when your kid misses school, that's like $100 less a day that school gets.
That's not a hard number. That's a
Yeah, that's a general. It's
right.
probably about $80, something
Okay,
like that.
all right.
And so when your kid doesn't show up, the district loses money. That's why they call you. Where is your child? And of course they're concerned about their education. It's important that our kids are in school,
Sure.
but also that's how they fund the teachers and the buildings and the transportation. So when you have a problem like this where there's no transportation, the ADA will drop way off because parents will simply say, well, I'll just have to school my kid when I get home from work. And of course that's going to not be a very good job because how many like to go to school at the end of their workday? It's difficult.
Sure.
And
so
so
homeschooling is not
no,
an
it's
easy
not
process.
easy. It's a very difficult
yes.
job,
It's
and
very
you better
demanding
know
on
what
it.
you're doing.
Yeah.
So then some people just won't go to school. They won't send their kids to school. They just may not value the education, or just don't have any way to do it. So you would probably
Wow.
think that at least half or more of those kids will not attend school. They'll make other ways, and so now you've got that much more or less daily income for the school district. So now the school district's really shrinking, and so what you're seeing
Wow.
is a dramatic change in the way we do education, public
Sure.
agent in Big Bear, unless we can do something about this and get our transportation funding back.
And the workshop Wednesday was basically a plea for, has anybody got any ideas?
Well, this is a board meeting workshop, school board workshop, to let the citizens of Big Bear know what they're doing in the school district, and that just happened to come up, is what's happening, the drastic budget
Just happened
cuts.
to come up.
Well, yeah, it was
Yeah.
one of the things on the agenda.
Right.
They have these, I think it's every quarter or something, and so, but there was 75 people there. It was pretty packed out. Normally they have 10 or 15. So
And we had video there. Tom was there to tape the thing, but they didn't have audio feeds and
Right.
and
It didn't turn. The
just
video
didn't come
looks
out.
beautiful. The audio, it was hard getting the audio.
Uh-huh.
I'm still trying to compress it and get it louder, but most of the citizens and the board administrators were all in support of trying to figure out a way to pay for transportation so we can keep our school district open and running.
Okay. And this on the back of the Senate passing ABA 131,
130,
where
yeah.
there's $65 million going to
Pay for college educations for illegal immigrants, right? And it's kind of ironic in that you have what's happening here. This is the way I see it anyway. Is we're taking entitlements from one place to entitle other people, and so it's like this rob Peter to pay Paul entitlement program we got going on, and it's completely upside down. But bottom line is, you don't get kids to school, you can't teach them, and in Big Bear, it's important that we have some sort of transportation system.
You'll keep us up to date?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you can find these updates as we get them on the Channel 6 News, which is at the top of every hour. We'll try to keep you up to date as quick as we can.
And I would like to add one more thing. They're having a letter writing campaign to our senators, legislators at the Big Bear Middle School on February 7th, Shay, is it?
Yeah.
February 7th, 5 to 8 p.m. at the Big Bear Middle School. We're going to write to our congressman and let them know how we feel and ask them to provide funding for transportation in Big Bear because we have a specific, unique need up here in our community.
Shoot a letter off to the Republican candidates in Obama and see, hey, you got any help?
Well,
Yeah.
we're
Hey,
talking
hey.
to them all of them.
Come
Absolutely.
on here. Thanks for coming on, Tom. Really
My pleasure.
appreciate it.